Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Very nice to be here. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say something. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 25, entitled The Glories of Devotional Service. And we're reading today from text number 42. So if you can repeat after me line by line. Madbhayad vativatoyam Suryastapati madbhayat Varshatindro dahatyagnir Mrityuscharati madbhayat Madbhayad vativatoyam Suryastapati madbhayat Varshatindro dahatyagnir Mrityuscharati madbhayat Madbhayat vativatoyam Suryastapati madbhayat Varshatindro dahatyagnir Mrityuscharati madbhayat. Matajis. Madbhayad vativatoyam Suryastapati madbhayat Varshatindro dahatyagnir Mrityuscharati madbhayat Yatoyam. Matbhayat, out of fear of me. Vati, blows. Vata, wind. Ayam, this. Surya, the sun. Tapati, shines. Matbhayat, out of fear of me. Varsati, showers and rain. Indra, Indra. Dahati, burns. Agni, fire. Mrityu, death. Charati, goes. Madbhayat, out of fear of me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation: it is because of my supremacy that the wind blows out of fear of me. The sun shines out of fear of me. And the Lord of clouds, Indra, sends forth showers out of fear of me. Fire burns out of fear of me. And death goes about taking its toll out of fear of me. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the natural laws being enacted are correct in all activities because of His superintendence. No one should think that nature is working automatically without superintendence. The Vedic literature says that the clouds are controlled by the demigod Indra. Heat is distributed by the sun god. The soothing moonlight is distributed by Chandra, and the air is blowing under the arrangement of the demigod Vayu. But above all these demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the chief living entity, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam. The demigods are also ordinary living entities, but due to their faithfulness, their devotional service attitude, they have been promoted to such posts. These different demigods or directors, such as Chandra, Varuna, and Vayu, are called Adhikari Devata. The demigods are departmental heads. The government of the Supreme Lord consists not only of one planet or two or three. There are millions of planets and millions of universes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a huge government, and He requires assistance. The demigods are considered His bodily limbs. These are the descriptions of the Vedic literature. Under these circumstances, the sun god, the moon god, the fire god, and the air god are working under the direction of the Supreme Lord. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dhyakshaina Prakriti Suyate Sa Characharam. The natural laws are being conducted under His superintendence. Because He is in the background, everything is being performed punctually and regularly. One who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely protected from all other influences. He no longer serves or is obliged to anyone. Of course, he is not disobedient to anyone, but his full power of thought is absorbed in the service of the Lord. The statements by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, that under His direction the air is blowing, the fire is burning, and the sun is giving heat, are not sentimental. The impersonalists may say that the Bhagavatam devotees create and imagine someone as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and assign qualifications to him, but actually it is neither imagination nor an imposition of artificial power in the name of Godhead. In the Vedas it is said, Bhisha Shmad Vata Pade Bhisho Deiti Surayaha. By fear of the Supreme Lord, the wind god and the sun god are acting. Bhisha Shmad Chandrascha Mrityur Dhavati Panchama. Agni, Indra, and Mrityu are also acting under his direction. These are the statements of the Vedas. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnanati Mirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishram Stapitam Upakadamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Svana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And it's very, very interesting that basically from the beginning of the third canto up until the beginning of the fourth canto, we are hearing about the progeny of Swayambhu Manu and Satarup. So as you know, in Vedic literature, you can see things literally, you can see things ethically, also see things metaphorically. For example, the Battle of Kurukshetra is a literal event. It actually happened, right? But at the same time, there's an ethical level. You can learn lessons from it that relate to your life. But also, there is a metaphor, that the battle is like the battle of life, and Arjuna is bewildered just as the living entity is bewildered. So like this, Vedic literature can be seen. Similarly, Swayambhuva Manu, one commentator says Swayambhuva Manu and his children can also be seen on a metaphorical level. Swayambhuva Manu was married to who? Satarup, right? So Swayambhuva Manu marries Satarup. And then Swayambhuva Manu and Satarup have 3 daughters. What are their names? They all rhyme, so it's easy. Akuti, Devahuti, Prashuti. Yeah? So Swayambhuva Manu marries Satarup, and then they have 3 daughters named Akuti, Devahuti, Prashuti. So one Bhagavatam commentator says this has a metaphorical meaning. Manu comes from the Sanskrit mana, which means the mind. Rupa means what? Form. Satarup means, it can also in other languages. In this context, Satarup means hundreds of forms. Satarup, many forms, hundreds of forms. Okay, so Manu is the mind, and Satarup means hundreds of forms. So it's explained that the mind naturally hundreds of forms of thoughts. And when the mind takes hundreds of forms of thoughts, all of those hundreds of forms of thoughts can basically be categorized into 3. Akuti means the higher aspiration and the wish. Akuti represents realization, spiritual perfection. Devahuti, Deva means what? Demigods. And Huti means, like when you're doing a yagya, you do Huti, which is offerings. Like at the end we do Purna Huti, which means the final offering, the perfect offering. So Devahuti means offerings to the demigods, worshipping the demigods. And prashuti means procreation, physical creation, physical enjoyment, physical gratification. So can you see now what it represents? When the mind comes together with hundreds of thoughts, then the mind and the hundreds of thoughts can be categorized into three paths that the living entity can take. Either the living entity can take the higher spiritual aspiration, or the living entity can take the path of devahuti, which means sense enjoyment but through demigod worship and karma kanda. Or the living entity can take the path of physical enjoyment, represented by the name prashuti, which means gratification. So it's interesting here that Swayambhuva Manu is, not Swayambhuva Manu, Kapila Dev is telling his mother, Devahuti. Devahuti means offerings to the demigods. And what is Kapila telling Devahuti, whose name literally means offerings to the demigods? Kapila is saying you only have to worship the Supreme Lord. The demigods are only working because they are in fear of the Supreme Lord. They know they have a universal duty. And if they don't perform that universal duty, then the Supreme Lord will be on their case. Therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ar Sabha Bhritya Yare Yaiche Nachaya Taiche Sekare Nitya. Ekale Ishvara Krishna, there's only one controller, that's Krishna. Ar Sabha Bhritya, and everyone else is a servant. Yare Yaicha Nachaya Setaiche Kare Nritya, and everyone else is dancing according to how the Supreme Lord wants them to dance. In commentary to this verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur questions, why is Kapila bringing this up, that the demigods are fearful of the Supreme Lord? Because he says in the last verse, Kapila told Devahuti, what did Kapila say? If you want to be free of fear, it can only be done by one who resorts to taking supreme, exclusive... Okay, everyone puts their hand up. Put your hand up if there's someone in this room who has a fear about something that you don't have a fear about. No one. No, but you may speak to someone, they may be fearful of something, isn't it? Sometimes others are fearful of something, it's not fearful for you. How many of you are fearful of spiders? Okay, one. But no one else. So she has a fear that you don't have, right? And similarly, you may have a fear that someone else doesn't have. What does all of this tell you? Yeah, everybody has fears. What else does it tell you? Fears come and go. Fears are different. We have different perceptions. You're basically getting to the point. Fear is all in the mind. Fear is created. Fear is artificial because it changes. It changes between people. It even changes within ourselves. So that means fear is not a part of us. Fear is something that's learnt. And fear can also be unlearned. The Bhagavatam explains where fear comes from. If you look in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a very famous verse which explains where fear comes from. Bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata shadi shadapetasya viparyayo smriti tanmayayato buddha abhachetam bhaktyayka yesham gurudehi vatatma. Where does bhaya or fear come from? The first step in fear, ishadapetasya, the beginning of fear happens when you do what? Ishadapetasya, you look away from Krishna. The beginning of fear is when you look away from Krishna. And when you look away from Krishna, what's the second thing that happens? Viparyayo smriti. You become forgetful of that reality. So step 1, you look away from Krishna. Step 2, you become forgetful of that reality. You lose your remembrance of that reality. Step number 3, abhiniveshata shat. You become absorbed in another reality. Right? And then step number 4, tanmayayato. You become overcome by Maya. Bhayam. And then fear comes. This is how fear comes. Number 1, you look away from Krishna. Number 2, you forget the spiritual reality. Number 3, you become absorbed in a second reality. And number 4, then you become overcome and engulfed by Maya. And then Bhayam, fear comes. And how do you overcome that fear? Bhaktyai Guru Devatatma. You again engaging bhakti. But it's interesting in this verse, it doesn't just say engage in bhakti. You engage in bhakti, Guru Devatatma, under the guidance of the Guru, accepting the Guru as the representative of Krishna. In other words, bhakti which is guided by the Guru and Vaishnavas. Because actually you can't practice bhakti unless one is guided by Guru. Because Rupa Goswami is giving 64 angas of bhakti, but what is he saying right in the beginning? Ado Guru Padashraya. Yes, I'm giving you so many angas of bhakti, but in the beginning you must surrender to Guru, to the Vaishnavas, because they give you access to actually perform those angas of bhakti. So this is the actual means to overcome fear. Basically, one must again look at the Supreme Lord. One must again bring the presence of the Supreme Lord into their heart. One must again then remember the spiritual reality. And then one must develop an absorption in the spiritual reality. And in this way, one can dissipate Maya. And so here, what's being said is that for those who are not in sync with the Supreme Lord, there will be complete fearfulness. The moment that the sun doesn't shine, or the wind doesn't blow, or that the heavens don't send forth showers, the moment the gods become out of line with the Supreme Lord, then they're filled with fear. But the moment that one is in complete sync with the Supreme Lord, then one becomes completely fearless. So if we really want to overcome our fear, you see in the world they try to overcome fear on many levels. On a physical level, on an emotional level, on an intellectual level. But none of these ways of overcoming fear will ultimately mitigate that anxiety within us. For example, on the physical level, people try to overcome fear by doing different things, isn't it? Like you put an alarm on your house, or for example, take out an insurance policy just in case something may happen, or different ways. Take loads of vitamin supplements so that you don't get sick. Take the vaccination or don't take the vaccine, whichever one you want to. Isn't it? On the physical level, we try to overcome fear by taking certain measures on a physical platform. On an emotional level, people also try to overcome fear. Isn't it? Like say, for example, drugs. Drugs are a way of overcoming fear, or trying to overcome fear, because they cover the consciousness in a certain way. They dull the consciousness in a certain way so you don't feel. It's funny when people get intoxicated, all inhibitions go away. I remember when I was at university, of course, I never got drunk. But I saw many people around me that got drunk. And it was very interesting when, like, you would find very, very shy people, like extreme, they wouldn't say anything to anyone normally. But after becoming drunk, they would become like the most extroverted people. Because there's a toxic, all of one's inhibitions. It's another way of trying to overcome fear. So on a physical level, we try, but it doesn't work. You can have all the alarms, but anxiety. Yes, you can take all the drugs, but fear is there. On an intellectual level, people try to overcome fear. They read like different books of affirmations, isn't it? Affirmations like, I will do this, or I will be okay. It will be okay. Yes, it will be okay. Or we try to intellectualize it, I once saw this infographic going out, and it said, worry. I can do something about it, then no need to worry. I can't do something about it, then no need to worry. And it's like, it's like they try to intellectualize why you shouldn't worry about anything. And it makes sense on the thing, but in life you're still, because you can't overcome fear on any of these levels. The only way to overcome fear is to become ultimately conscious of Krishna. One must again look at Krishna. Then one has no fear of anything. The moment you look away from Krishna, Krishna bahir mukha hoya bhoga kare nikata stamaya tare japatiya dhare jagat artha. Krishna bahir, as soon as you look away from Krishna and you try to enjoy separately, nikata sta, nikata, very close by, sta, situated. Who is situated very close by? Nikata sta maya. Maya is very close by. Japatiya dhare, and she strikes you down. So, therefore, when they asked Srila Prabhupada, it was very interesting. They asked Srila Prabhupada, what do you feel when you chant Hare Krishna? Of course, Prabhupada could have given so many answers. They asked Prabhupada, what do you feel when you chant Hare Krishna? And what did Prabhupada say? I feel no fear. Abhay Charanara Vinda, one who is fearless, having taken shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. In this world, there's so many fears, there's so many anxieties, there's so many worries. And it all comes because we're out of sync with the Supreme Lord. The moment we align our desires with the desires of the Supreme Lord, the moment we embrace the plan of the Lord. This is Vrindavan. You know the word Vraja? Vraja means Vrindavan, but the etymological meaning of the word Vraja is to move. To move. So why are the residents of Vrindavan, or why are the Brajabasis, why does it mean to move? Because the residents of Vrindavan are always moving with Krishna. They're always moving with Krishna's plan. They're always embracing the ever-changing desires of Krishna with full willingness. And therefore, because they're always moving with the Lord, because they're always in sync with the Lord, because they're not fighting the Lord's plan, because they don't have their own plan in their own mind, which has become more prominent than Krishna's plan, they're completely happy. They're completely without anxiety. Vaikuntha, no anxiety, because everyone is in complete sync with the Supreme Lord. And in order to be in sync with the Supreme Lord, Bhaktyayaka yesham guru devatatma. One must be in sync with the Vaishnavas. Because we hear the Lord, we hear the desires of the Lord through the mouth of the Vaishnavas. And therefore, this is a very, very practical way for us to begin to live a life which is completely synchronized with the Supreme Lord. And when we have that synchronization, then there is nothing to fear. Okay, before I continue, what's the time? 8:30. Just see whether there are any comments or questions thus far on any of these points, and then I can say a little bit more. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask? Yes, but
to ask about the name of the number of the verse from the 11th canto you were quoting.
Number of the verse?
You can also.
Okay, I can give it to you. Just give me 1 second. Oh, sorry, I'll just get this verse for you. Okay, I'll give it to you in a bit. Yes.
It's more like, I was wondering if you could expand on fear and attachment, because it seems like they're very much connected, and attachment meaning like positive, I really want this, and also this rejection. They seem to be really connected to fear, so I was wondering if you could say something about that connection between attachment and fear.
Yes. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dukeshvan udvina manaha sukeshu vikataspraha vitta raga bhaya krodha stita dhir muniruchyate. Krishna says, one who is not elated when there is happiness, one who is not distressed when there is misfortune. And then Krishna says, Vitta raga bhaya krodha. One who is free from raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, and krodha, anger. Stita dhi muniruchyate. Such a person is to be considered a sage of the steady mind. So when the commentators commentate on this, they say there is a progression. Raga, bhaya, krodha. That when there is attachment, then naturally there is bhaya, there is fear. And when there is fear, then naturally there is krodha, there is frustration, or there is anger, or there is insecurity within one's consciousness. The basic problem is that people basically know that their attachment and fear are connected. People know that intuitively, that attachment and fear are connected. But the way that they deal with it in the material world is they say, we don't want to get rid of the attachment, so what we're going to try and control everything in the world. In other words, like say for example, I have an attachment to being like, I don't know, like the best speaker, for example, or I have an attachment to being in the top position. Then naturally I'm constantly fearful that someone may take my position. So what the material world is that their basic modus operandi is, I'm not giving up my attachment. So what I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure that no one is going to approach my position. And they try to mitigate their fears of being usurped in their control the material world. People are fearful of old age, or people have an attachment to being beautiful, and therefore they have a fear of old age. Therefore, what's the basic modus operandi of the world? Do everything you can to delay the aging process. Right? People have a desire and attachment to be incredibly wealthy, and therefore, they have a fear that, wealth will be taken away from them. And therefore, they make all kinds of systems basically ensure that, nothing is, no one can impinge upon their things. The basic problem of the material world is that no one's willing to give up their attachments, and at the same time no one fear, and therefore they try to artificially control the world. But when you try to artificially control the world, then naturally, krodha, there's going to be anger, there's going to be frustration, because what can you control in the world? You cannot control. You will be frustrated. Therefore, these things go in a line: attachment, fear, and anger. Therefore, for a Vaishya, that's why they have to become detached. Kaviraj Goswami says, Mahaprabhur Bhakta Ganer Vairagya Pradhan Eki Prita Hone Gaura Bhagavan. Mahaprabhur Bhakta Ganer, the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vairagya Pradhan. Pradhan means the basic principle. So Kaviraj Goswami says the basic principle which sustains the life of the devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a detachment from the material world. Jahadeki, and when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sees that detachment within a devotee, Prita Gaura Bhagavan, that Gaura Bhagavan, he becomes very happy, because he knows now this person has become detached, they will actually be able to experience real happiness. So we have to become detached. What do we have to become detached from? We have to become detached from our identities, our facilities, and our abilities. These are the three things we become detached from. We play identities, we play many roles in this world. We're mother, we're father, we're in the temple, we have different roles in society, we may have a role in the world. We play these roles, but we remember all the world's a stage. The world's a stage, and everyone is simply an actor. They have their entrances and exits, and then behind all of the identities of this world, we have a detachment, knowing that these are roles, these are temporary parts that are. And therefore, when we wake up in the morning, why do we do sadhana first? Because we realized many roles and identities are there, but first I'm a devotee of Krishna. First I'm a devotee of Krishna. Put Krishna in the center. Put the big stone in the jar, and then all the small stones, all the sand. But if you try to do it the other way around, it's all a mess. So first one must become detached from all their identities. Detached doesn't mean irresponsible, dysfunctional. Detached doesn't mean neglectful. No, you're dutiful, you're attentive, you're diligent in your responsibilities that go with you, but you realize this is not me. So we must become detached from identities. We must become detached from the abilities that we have. We often get a sense of self-worth based on our abilities. That's how we view our life in this world. Because I feel valuable, because I have these abilities. But if you feel your value based on your abilities, at one point you'll feel a lot of pain, because Krishna take away your abilities. Or Krishna may send someone else who has better abilities than you, and then you begin to feel extremely insecure. Therefore, one must also be detached from their abilities and the things that Krishna has invested in them. And then the third thing is that one must be detached from facilities. That by Krishna's grace, so many things come to us in this world: a dwelling place, money, certain position in this world. But if you get comfortable, if you get attached, then gradually all of those things also, everything, the world is constantly changing. So all of these things, all of our facilities, again, one will experience frustration. So detachment is not just for 3 classes of the Varnashram. Sometimes people think detachment is for the brahmacharis, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis. No, detachment is Mahaprabhur Bhakta Ganer Vairagya Pradhan. It's the basic principle of every devotee. Because if you don't, life is going to be extremely painful. It's going to be painful. And therefore, yes, definitely there will be fear. And where there is attachment and fear, definitely there will be anger and frustration. Therefore, instead of trying to control the world to deal with all of this, we should let go of the world. And that will cut all of these problems at the root. Address what you wanted to. Yeah. Yeah, Ramananda Prabhu. I got that verse, by the way. The verse I was quote. Oh, I thought I had it. Okay, go on. So you can say your question.
Is it safe to say that being detached means that, being fearless means that you're detached? I can think about it like, we know to some extent it's good to have anxiety if we want to do something for Krishna, but my question comes up, does not fear induce coming to the point to surrender to Krishna because you know do anything about it? So out of frustration of this fear, one surrender.
Yeah, very good. Just before I forget it, 11 to 37. That's the verse, yeah. Okay, so let me say a few more things about fear because I kind of painted fear as a very bad thing. Fear also has a function. You see, there is an instinctive type of fear that a living entity has, which is necessary for survival. Like when you're walking across the road and a car is coming at 100 miles per hour straight at you, you might feel a bit fearful even if you're a self-realized soul. Because there's a certain fear which is inbuilt within us, which is necessary for survival. So when we talk about overcoming fear, we're not saying that, a devotee may become, say for example, a devotee is in trouble. Rupa Goswami mentions this actually in Nectar of Devotion, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when he's talking about pure devotional service. And he says that a devotee may, in a very acute situation, feel great fear and call out, Krishna, save me. But he says that, is that to be considered outside of the realms of pure devotional service? No. Because it's an instinctive type of protection that we're looking for, because we have an instinctive type of fear that will arise within us. So some type of fear within the living entity is necessary for survival. But when we're talking about fear here, fear which is coming from existential insecurity. Right? Practically every one conditioned soul in the material world is insecure. Why are we insecure? Because Om Purnamad Purnamidam, Krishna is the complete whole. We're supposed to be complete. But because we've forgotten our connection with the complete whole, we feel incomplete. And because we feel incomplete, we feel insecure. Because we feel insecure, we look for appreciation. We look for acknowledgement. We look for accolade. We look for all of these things to fill the insecurity, and we feel fear if we don't get it or if we have it and we lose it. So there are two types of fear. That's the first thing. The second thing is, can fear help in approaching Krishna? Well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, religion can be practiced on 4 levels. Bhaya is the lowest. Then he says, higher than that is asha, material desire. Higher than that is kartavya, which means duty. And higher than that is prema, which means love. So fear, you're right, it can induce one to begin, open up their relationship with Krishna. But later on, it is not out of fear that one is, we are not God-fearing. Gaudiya Vaishnavism is not a path of, is sweet, isn't it? Gaudiya, right? Some people think Gaudiya, I mean the general understanding of Gaudiya is it means coming from Gauda, coming from Gaudadesh. That's why we are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because Mahaprabhu was in Gaudadesh and we follow Mahaprabhu, therefore we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But others, they say Gauda comes from the word Gur, Guda or Gur. Gur means Jagri. So Gaudiya doesn't just mean the type of Vaishnavism that comes from Gaudadesh. It means the type of Vaishnavism which is incredibly sweet. It's the icing on the cake. So it's a very sweet path. It's a very loving path. It's a path which is full of Krishna's beauty, Krishna's charm, Krishna's extraordinary exchanges of love. This is what is predominating. So in there's not much room for fear. Krishna fears the devotees because of love. But yes, it can help in the beginning. Yeah. Well, did that answer your questions? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Prabhu.
Krishna, this very fascinating topic, fear, I think.
Yeah.
And I think most of us, we are attached to fear because we identify with that fear. When you tell somebody, just give it up, you don't have to be afraid of something. They don't want to give it up because you identify with that fear, because you think, if I give up my fear, then who I am. And we using fear also to hide behind, I can't do this. For example, I was once in Mangaladi. I don't sing so often Mangaladi, and then I was supposed to sing and I messed it up, So now I'm completely, when somebody asked me, Prabhu, you want to sing? Better not, but mostly on the altar. And then when so I'm afraid of that. So I'm hiding behind this. Anyway, this is one thing. But I think said is a little bit, we also Gaudiya Vaishnavism or also Bhagavatam works with fear. Religions many times they work on the level of fear, of hell, of punishment, committing offenses. So this could be a healthy thing, that we be careful. And even Srila Prabhupada said he's afraid that he, pray for me that I don't fall in Maya. Or what you,
yes.
Or he said, my devotees not enough afraid of Maya.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
something like. So this is also what you explained as a healthy type, also in spiritual, that we should be kind of protective of our. But then you said something also before, that the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they're completely without fear. But how is that? As far as I can see, that is afraid of losing Krishna.
Yes.
He said they are moving always with Krishna. Or why didn't they move with Krishna then to Mathura?
Okay. All right. There's a lot of questions there. Okay. All right. Let's go one by one.
I was in the back with Govinda, and I said, Why? This makes no
Oh
sense
my
in
God,
one
that's
sense.
a whole seminar in itself, why the Brajavasis didn't go to Krishna. Okay, I'm just thinking what order to answer your points in, because they're all amazing points.
Yeah,
Okay,
example,
the first one I let me comment on is your nice point about how fear is important in our spiritual life. Yes, I think it was Prabhupada was giving a lecture, and then Prabhupada said, "I will never fall down." And then after the lecture, Prabhupada went to the deities and he was praying intensely. And one devotee after said, "Prabhupada, what were you praying for?" And Prabhupada said, "I was praying that I never fall down." He said, "But Prabhupada, you said in the lecture you would never fall down." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, I will never fall down because I'm always praying to the Lord, let me never fall down." So yes, Prabhupada said, but the problem with my devotees is that they're not enough fearful of Maya. So yes, definitely there's a type of fear. Devamita Maharaj, he said that Maya is like a dog which is chasing you. And the devotee is like running away, like no, like running away from Maya. And it's like a dog that chases you all the way back to Godhead. So that was kind of like nice, to think of it like that. That you think, my God, my whole life I'm just fearful of Maya, I'm just running away from Maya, and then in all way you find yourself in the spiritual world, because yes, Maya is... Prabhupada once said the job of Maya and the job of Krishna is exactly the same. Really? He said Krishna is like a loving friend who comes in front of you, puts his hands out and says, "Come with me to the spiritual world." And Maya is like the other person behind you and gives you a good kick. So which way do you want to come? This way or the other way? Up to you, but you will come. So yes, Maya and a fear of Maya is pushing us. Yes, why do we find in the fifth canto of Bhagavatam all the heavy descriptions of the hellish planets? Because yes, understand what is the ramifications of not serving Krishna. Yet the point I'm making is that if there is too much fear, if fear becomes too prominent, then it will compromise the ability of our natural bhakti to... If fear becomes too much of a, if I don't do this, then it can potentially become a block to the natural free-flowing bhakti. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have any fear. No, we should be aware. But the Krishna's sweetness should eventually be more prominent. Like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, this is kind of slightly different, but it's related. He says the love of the Dwarkavasis is like a full cup, and the love of the Brijabasis is like an ocean. A full ocean. So they're both full. They're both full, fully loving. But when you put a handful of the salt of Aishvarya in the cup, then the water becomes salty. But when you put a handful of Aishvarya in the ocean, then it absorbs it. So in Dwarka and in Vrindavan, Krishna exhibits sometimes his Aishvarya. But because the love of the Brajabasi is so deep, even when Krishna shows his Aishvarya, they're like, okay, that's nice, but anyway, it's just Krishna. He's our friend, In other words, they see Krishna's greatness, but the sweetness is pervading. This is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So that our general way of preaching to people is not to incite them with the fear of God, which can be the strategy of others. We won't mention any names. I'm sure those of you who have been on book distribution know what I'm talking about. That doesn't mean that we also don't talk about Krishna's majesty. But that is not the main. So I guess that's the point I'm making, that we just have to be careful that we want to love Krishna. We don't want to just be worshipping Krishna because we're fearful of Krishna. That doesn't mean fear doesn't have a part to play. And then you made many other points. The Brijabasis, I said that the Brijabasis are not in fear. But yes, of course, the Brijabasis, they do experience fear. Of course, this is transcendental fear. The Brijabasis don't feel any fear which is out of material insecurity. The Brijabasis don't feel any fear because of material attachment. The Brijabasis don't feel any fear because of a sense of being incomplete. Their fear actually comes from love. It's a different type of fear. Who in this material world can say, my fear is coming out of love? Fear is coming out of love. All your fear in this material world is coming out of lust, out of attachment. The Brahmasis, yes, they are fearful. It's all coming from pure love for Krishna. So it's a completely different, it's a different dimension. Yes, and yeah, so anyway, that's that. I said the Brijabasis, but then why did they not go to Mathura? There are many answers for this. Some might ask, why the gopis were in such separation, okay, from Krishna. You go to Vrindavan today, Vrindavan to Mathura is so short. It's just like a 20-minute rickshaw drive. Why they were just crying there? Why didn't they just go to if they were always moving with Krishna? So the acharyas give different reasons why they didn't go to Mathura. One reason is they knew that Vasudeva and Devaki had not had any time with Krishna while he was growing up. And so they felt that we had so many years with Krishna, and now we should also allow them to love Krishna, allow them to be with Krishna. And if we come there, then it will compromise their ability and their opportunity to be with Krishna. So out of respect for Vasudeva and Devaki, the acharyas say the Brijabasis did not go. But then they say there are other reasons. Because what is the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Ado Bhagavan Vraje Satanayas Tadham Vrindavanam. What is the worshipable object of Gaudiya Vaishnavas? Krishna, but not just Krishna, the Dham Vrindavanam. Krishna in Vrindavan. Therefore, the Brajabasis didn't want to go outside Vrindavan to be with Krishna. They only wanted to, they knew that they could only really exchange love with Krishna in its most perfect way only when Krishna was in Vrindavan. Therefore, although they could have associated with Krishna outside of Vrindavan, they didn't want to because the setting was not right. Therefore, even, isn't it, when Krishna comes to Kurukshetra and the Brijabasis come to Kurukshetra, then there's the famous verse where the gopis say, this is the same Krishna, you are the same, we are the same gopis, but this setting is not the right. We want to take you back to Vrindavan under the, trees on the banks of the Yamuna, heights of Chaitra, and there we want to exchange pastimes of love. Because they don't want to just worship Krishna, the Dham of Vrindavanam. They want to worship Krishna. They want to love Krishna in Vrindavan. Yes, so they're always moving with Krishna. Like, for example, Krishna leaves Vrindavan, isn't it? And then Akrura takes Krishna on the chariot, and they're leaving Vrindavan. Of course, Vrindavan. Parityaja Padamekam Nagar. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, but anyway, superficially. And then, as Akrura is taking the gopis taking Krishna to Mathura. They're blocking the chariot. So then the acharyas say, but someone may say they're always moving with the will of Krishna, and if the will of Krishna is to go to Mathura, then why are they blocking it? If Brajabasis fully surrender and go with the will of Krishna, then why are they stopping Krishna's will? He wants to go, so let him go. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the commentary. He says, no, but the gopis know the deeper will of Krishna, the deeper desire of Krishna. And they know that the deeper desire of Krishna is to engage in prem vilas, in exchange in pastimes of love. And therefore Krishna doesn't know that if he lives in Vrindavan, he will not find the satisfaction that he finds in Vrindavan. And therefore they were blocking the chariot not for themselves, because they were realizing Krishna has lost it. Krishna's gone mad. Krishna doesn't know. He doesn't realize the ramifications of leaving Vrindavan. He will not be able to be happy. We must stop the chariot. So even in that case, where they seem to be blocking and going against the will of Krishna, in a deeper sense, they are completely aligned with the will of Krishna. So even in pastimes of love, where it seems that the Brajabasis are not moving with Krishna, they're always moving with Krishna. Even when they fight with Krishna, even when they seem to try to contradict Krishna's plan, the churning of rasa, which is the ultimate goal of Krishna, because Krishna is Raso Vesaha, Rasa Raj, Rasa Bihari, Rasika Shekhara, Rasika Roy, Rasika Ranjan. He only wants rasa. Anyway, so these were some points. Yes. It's 9 o'clock. Is there one more? Do we have to stop? Or? I don't know. Shall we stop? It's 9 o'clock. Okay, small, short, and then we can.
Prabhu. Thank you so much for your amazing class. I will make it very short. So Queen Kunti in her prayers is praying for, oh please Krishna, let me get rid of this knot, family knot. I'm too attached to my family, isn't it? To the Pandavas. So she's so elevated, you know. How can she be attached? So if she wants to get rid of this family knot, what about me? The level of attachment. Sometimes I'm afraid to get attached to my grandsons and my children, my daughters. Like when I die, then I will think about them instead of, you know. So what is the level of the attachment Queen Kunti talking about? Such a detached, elevated soul.
Yes, Queen Kunti is praying now. Atha Vishvesha Vishvatman Vishvamurte Svakeshu Me Sneha Pasham Imam Chindi Dridam Pandusu Vishnishu. That the Sneha, the action, Sneha Pasham is like a rope of affection. You. Human relationships are very, you see, okay, see, this, I could hold on to this, right? And it's attachment. But it's easy because once I let it go, I let it go. But human attachments are like this. So you may let go, but there's a double attachment because others are holding on to you. It's not just that you. Therefore, the attachment between living beings is much deeper because there's a double attachment. So therefore, what is she praying? Tvaime nanya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahatad adha gange vogumadanvati. Beautiful verse. She says then after that she says, I want my love to flow to you, Krishna, without any hindrance, just as the Ganga flows, just as the rivers flow, the Ganga flows into the ocean without being obstructed by anything. But then, in commentating on this, it's interesting because the Pandavas, the Vrishnis, these are all like the best devotees of Krishna. It's so like, why does she want to be detached from them? Because they're like the best devotees from Krishna. You should be attached to the devotees, right? But the explanation is given that even if your family are devotees, because you are connected with them by bodily relationship, even they may be Vaishnavas, there is a very good chance that that bodily connection with them will tinge the relationship. Therefore, although they're devotees, and although being attached to devotees is the greatest thing, she is praying that let my attachment be cut. Because they are my bodily relations, there is a good chance that my connection with them will be tinged by some impurity of the bodily concept. And that impurity can hold me back. So therefore, yes, even your family may be devotees. At some point, one must begin to start detaching. It doesn't have to be immediate, it doesn't have to be cold, it doesn't have to be harsh, but gradually one must know that all attachments have to be severed. And one practical way in which to do it is that, say